You believe in the devil?
You want the short answer or the long one?
You run around this city like it's your damn shooting gallery.
Yeah, what do? You act like it's a playground. You beat up the bullies with your fists, you throw them in jail, everybody calls you a hero, right? Only I do the one thing that you can't. You hit them and they get back up, I hit them and they stay down.
Come on, kill me now! You don't get to destroy who I am!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics a la Mode, the podcast where we talk about random ass shit.
Mostly centered around a specific subject.
Mostly centered around comics.
But yeah, we
Marvel,
do what we want on this show, that's for sure.
DC, all of the above. I'm Russ. As always, Landon is with us again.
How's it going?
We got some interesting news, as you can tell by the backdrop. We've got some Avengers Doomsday news. They changed the look of... First off, they changed the look of the logo. I don't know if you saw that.
Like text-wise, the logo?
Yeah.
Text.
So the Doomsday,
maybe a little bit.
The Doomsday part is what they changed.
Oh, really?
It looks very Loki-esque. Just saying. And then...
Well, Loki's in the cast list. So.
I mean, yeah, we got a huge, long-ass stream. This was like a 4-hour stream where essentially they just had this camera panning back on chair after chair after chair of who was in the movie. All this was a cast list announcement. Essentially, what this was. Kind of gay.
So I saw one thing that I thought was funny was people are calling this the Avengers.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I like that. I think that's funny. Could they have done this better? Absolutely, yes. I think a 4-hour live stream or 5. I don't even know how long it was. I think that's a little ridiculous. But we were talking just before the show, and I think they knew that, okay, hardcore fans are going to check out whatever we put on live. And they did this, and then to their credit, afterwards, they put out an official minute-long version of this, which was much better. It went down the row of chairs seamlessly at the same time, and then it ended on RDJ's little bit at the end, and he was all like being funny or whatever. I think that was much better. Had I not known that this live stream was up and didn't know about it, I would have been fine with just a small minute video.
It is a
too long.
Too freaking long. It is a stupid publicity stunt because
it's definitely a stunt. Yeah. Man.
Here's the thing: I didn't know this was happening. I'd seen on X that there was an announcement coming today. Didn't look at anything. Didn't see anything. I'm working. I'm trying to prep the show, and all of a sudden, Angelo, our producer, texts me and goes, "So what's this Avengers chairs thing?" I'm like, I don't know. And it's trending on Twitter. Like it's trending on X. And apparently, and then I looked it up and I just see this stream. And already at that point, it was already like 2 hours in. It was insane. And it was just passing. It hit Simu Aliyu when I first pulled it up. But it's like, what? Like how? Like why?
A lot of it was just very predictable names. I know that it didn't get very interesting until about 2 hours in when they started dropping X-Men characters,
or when they start spoiling their own movie that's out.
we got the Thunderbolts coming out next month, or May or something like that. And it's like, here's all the characters that survived Thunderbolts, by the way, because they're in this movie now. I think that was weird, which got me thinking, like, this could all just be some sort of red herring, but it wasn't. It's the official cast list. And we have a bunch of cookie cutter names on here, like Anthony Mackie's Captain America. We have Thor, Chris Hemsworth. I'm actually glad to see Thor back, but I need them to take him in a whole nother direction. We got people like Letitia Wright, Winston Duke, like some, she's Black Panther now, but I don't know. Those names just don't excite me.
Winston Duke excite me is the best part of the Black
Panther.
Oh,
sure, yeah. I mean, sure. I think he's fantastic, but like, what do they bring to the table here, really? Without T'Challa and, you know, his connection to Victor Von Doom in the comics, like, I don't know why we're including some of these characters. What makes me really excited, though, is some of the X-Men name drops that we got. Specifically Nightcrawler, who we have not seen since like 2005 with X-Men X2 United. James Marsden, the best Cyclops casting that was misused back in the day.
Fair.
He's coming back.
Fair.
Absolutely love that. We get Kelsey Grammer back as
but
Beast.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing, though, too. Both castings for Cyclops were perfect. The director didn't know how to, and the script didn't know how to do him correctly.
Yeah, I think James Marsden was absolutely perfect for the role. Mm-hmm. And when I 100%. see a casting like that, I'm fine with whoever else they cast, because it's like I've got what I internalize as my perfect cast for that. So everything else is just gravy. I think, what is his name? Tyler something. The newer one. He was fine. He was one of the better parts of. I can't remember that guy's name. He was in like Ready Player One and all this stuff.
I don't remember his last name either.
A little more cookie cutter, a little more boring, if you ask me, but still, you know, Scott Summers is just a tall white boy. So, there's not much going on there, and those movies were shit. So
at the end of the day, that was the script, 100%. Like, that kid can act. We've seen him act. They could have done a really good job with that, but they didn't, because those movies were solely focused on three people: Hugh Jackman, Professor X, and Magneto.
A lot of those films were also heavily focused on Jean Grey, who is noticeably absent from this cast list. I thought we were just going to go down and get all those original Fox X-Men, which was Storm, which was Jean Grey, Cyclops, Wolverine, and Professor Xavier, but we get some like interesting names here. Like Gambit's coming back from Deadpool and Wolverine.
The one character that we knew was never going to come back, and it's probably on probably on the outside of the club looking in, is Ellen Page.
Oh yeah,
Kitty, because
that's not happening.
That ain't happening.
That's not happening. Yeah, it kind of feels like a really cool reunion of some of these original X-Men characters, which I think is great.
I mean, I saw this joke made on X, and it was, is this all going to, like, when the stream was doing its, hours long, they were kind of saying, is this all going to come down to there being another name change for this movie, and it's just going to be Avengers versus X-Men?
I've seen the Avengers versus X-Men comparisons. I was thinking the same thing, which is why I was like, is this a whole red herring? Like, this doesn't seem like a Doomsday, like a Victor Von Doom centered story. You have all these X-Men characters. What I thought this was the Secret Wars cast, because you get all these multiversal figures.
Fair.
I thought they were rolling out the Secret Wars cast, which we don't know that much about. Like, we've already seen Doom as RDJ as Doom and all this stuff. We know a little bit more about Doomsday. We don't know anything about Secret Wars, and I thought this was where it was headed. But, this throws a bit of a wrench into my predictions for what the MCU is doing moving forward. I didn't expect all these old X-Men names. I'm not going to lie, this kind of has me hyped. I like seeing Namor back in the mix. I think getting him involved with Doom is kind of like a must, because they have a lot of interactions in the comics. Especially with the Fantastic Four casting. I don't know. I thought Namor was a solid part of Wakanda Forever, but interesting.
Namor was one of the worst parts to me about that movie.
I liked how they did it. I don't know that much about Namor, so I didn't really have much of a backdrop of knowledge to pull from.
Here's my thing. They diversity hired Namor out as some Aztec, which, okay, fine. But my issue is that Namor was part of one of the coolest teams in Marvel Comics, which is the Invaders, which is World War II, which is Captain America, Bucky Barnes, Jim Hammond, the original Human Torch, who is an android, Namor, and I want to say there was
There's like the Destroyer and a bunch of
all
like
that.
Golden Age heroes from World War II.
One of the coolest teams in Marvel Comics, and then they had to go and take Namor and make him some Aztec. Whatever.
I mean, what is he supposed to be originally, though? I mean, he's Atlantean.
He's an Atlantean. Like he's just like
they didn't
he's essentially like Aquaman.
They didn't do Atlantean though.
Yeah,
so it's like they had to. I didn't like how they didn't do it Atlantean, but I could have rolled with like them making the Atlanteans some sort of Aztec spin-off group. I like that sort of added mysticism to it. Fair. I don't know anything about that character
movie so much. I just hate that movie so much.
I don't even hate Wakanda Forever. I think it was as good as they could have done. But
Shuri is one of the most useless characters.
Yeah, I'm definitely not too excited seeing more of that cast return. I would have much rather seen M'Baku take on the mantle of Black Panther because Winston Duke is so funny and he adds just so much to those films. Yeah, the Black Panther side of things is kind of a mess, but I hope they figure that out soon.
Also very interesting because there's a lot of leaks regarding Black Panther saying that they're essentially just going to pull one from a different universe.
I mean, probably
port him over and then just act like nothing happened.
I can see that being, or I mean, that's why they had T'Challa's son in it. Like they're just going to age him up quickly somehow for Secret Wars. True.
But
quickly on this, the Fantastic Four cast are getting thrown into it quickly, like right after their movie, boom, massive team up event,
but
like crazy.
I knew that was coming. Like we kind of knew that was coming.
I mean, you have to have Fantastic Four if you have Doom. I mean,
but also especially with the leaks
working around
and how, and when they also announced that Fantastic Four was going to be in its own universe, you kind of have to be like, yeah, they're pushing this. And again, this kind of leads everything back to what I'm saying is that the end of Fantastic Four, they're gonna lose against Galactus. Doom is going to resent them, but he's also going to somehow get into the portal or whatever they use to get to the MCU. He's going to get in there, and then he's just going to wreak havoc. And he's just going to be like, hey, you know what? You couldn't save our world, so I'm going to destroy this one.
It could be. I think it's so interesting that the Fantastic Four is taking place in sort of like a different universe because you're right. I think Galactus is going to destroy everything. They're going to get transplanted from there to here in our MCU timeline. Dr. Doom maybe is the impetus behind all of this stuff. Maybe he steals Galactus's power, and that's why we have Doomsday. Like, maybe we don't have to wait until the end of Doomsday to start getting Secret Wars. Like, maybe at the end of Fantastic Four, Doom gets that power and reorganizes the whole world. And then we have Doomsday and then Secret Wars taking place within his sort of utopia. I don't know if that makes sense, but this could go a multitude of different ways, especially now that we have the X-Men, we have the Fantastic Four, and whoever is left of the Avengers, I guess. We still don't know what that team looks like. I'm surprised that they didn't have a couple other cast members from the established MCU timeline. I don't really, it's not like I'm lamenting the loss of these cast members, but I didn't see any Captain Marvel on there. I didn't see any like, what do you call them? The Disney Plus characters, no Moon Knights, no Kamala Khans, no Hawkeyes, none of that stuff, which is kind of interesting because that seemed like
Daredevil.
The track they were, no Daredevil, no Charlie
Daredevil
Cox.
is there. They showed his chair.
Ooh.
They showed Charlie Cox's chair.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm. I saw it on X.
Really? Okay, so they had an X post on it?
No, I saw
somebody was waiting for it.
Somebody screenshotted it.
That might be fake. I've seen both. I was watching the live stream and I saw the video that they put out afterwards. Either way, I was expecting Charlie Cox, so it's not like a surprise, but anyways, suddenly we're taking like a very different turn with some of these things. And I didn't think the Thunderbolts would be that involved, but here we are.
Yeah,
we have this Doomsday thing.
The Thunderbolts are there. Yeah, and then that's also where they showed the actor who's going to play Sentry is going to be in this. So they're spoiling their own movie. So thanks, Marvel. Great. We now know that Sentry lives. I mean, I already kind of guessed. But... I already kind of guessed that he would survive at some point, especially if they're doing both Sentry and Void.
Yeah.
It's still crazy to me that somehow these Thunderbolts are going to take on the Sentry, but again,
it's a very wacky premise.
I'm still very excited for this movie.
Everything they're trying to achieve for Thunderbolts. They're trying to introduce Sentry, but also have this
the
group
fact
of Thunderbolts.
that Bucky is turning into a senator is hilarious to me. That is the funniest idea, and I love it. Like, I think it's hilarious.
It's very weird. I don't think it'll last. I
don't think he's going to last
at the
as
beginning,
senator, but I think it's funny that he's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try doing something else. And I just can't wait for the committee hearings where it's like, this
You know what? I don't even think...
This man cannot be on an intel committee. Like, there's no way. This man assassinated JFK. He assassinated Howard Stark. He cannot set foot on any
countless
panel.
Other Cold War missions.
Yeah,
like,
any
he's
panel.
a menace to society.
He cannot sit on any panel that has to deal with national intelligence and national security.
You're gonna have some sort of like Fox News anchor interviewing Bucky as a senator, and he's gonna just say some of the trigger words that Hydra implanted in him, and he's gonna go nuts, like live on air or something. I don't think he's even gonna make it to be a senator. I think in between.
No, I think he is one.
Intervals. I don't think he. I think he. Was
I think he already is one. Like, I already think, based off of like some of the behind the scenes photos that we've seen, he's already one. And especially it makes more sense when you tie into the fact that if you've seen, because this is one of the only scenes from this movie that I have actually seen. I watched and looked up the scene where Bucky shows up in Captain America: Brave New World, because that was
we all
the only thing I wanted to see. And
no good.
Based off of what Bucky says, it's very clear that he's already a senator, to me at least. And the BTS.
You could be right. Footage. I think regardless, he's either not going to get senator, and that's going to mean he's a failure, or he's going to get to senator, and somewhere along the line in Thunderbolts, he's going to lose the position, because Thunderbolts is treating all of these characters like they're down on their luck, like they're on their loser streak right now, because that's why they're all brought together. Whereas the Avengers were all kind of at the top of their game, and then they came together, Loki tore them apart, and then they got brought back stronger than ever. I think all the Thunderbolts just start at their rock bottom, right? Because you have Florence Pugh just doesn't feel fulfilled in life. She goes to her dad, and he's living in like an apartment, like a trashy apartment. I think Bucky Barnes is going to lose his Senate seat. I think you have the Ghost, you have Taskmaster just trying to make it out there, and they're not succeeding.
Well,
I think the trailer kind of
they're all
frames
working
them
for
that way.
Valencia. Like they're all on their own working for Valentina. Like that's the whole reason.
I think a few of them are working for
That's
Val.
the whole reason they're all sent to that one place, is because they're all sent to kill each other so that she can get rid of all evidence. Like that's the whole point. So
we'll see.
It'll be interesting.
No Val on this either. Do you think Val's going to die in Thunderbolts?
I don't. Val isn't an Avenger, so like nobody's gonna put. They're not gonna put her name.
She's not an Avenger, but she is kind of like this character that appears in everything. I don't necessarily like the character of Val, but she's in all these. But
correct. But they're not gonna put a chair out for her. Like she's not one of the Avengers.
I don't know that actress.
Like
People
she'll
love
show
that
up.
actress.
I think she'll absolutely show up. But I don't think they need to. They're not putting out a chair. Like that's not. You're not going to a Marvel movie because you want to see what's next for Valentina.
No, you're right. You're right. I just think there's got to be more to this cast list. I think it's interesting the names that are not included. Because there's got to be more. Yeah,
they don't include Spider-Man.
No Spider-Man. Huge.
They don't include a lot of people, which is funny. And you say Kamala, which is also hilarious because...
Yeah, that leads us into Daredevil.
That leads us perfectly into Daredevil. So we're going to switch over to Daredevil. And honestly, my overall thoughts on these two episodes is I didn't I didn't necessarily hate them. I just didn't enjoy them as much as the other episodes. Episode 4 is blatantly a filler episode.
5. I think you're talking about 5.
No, because we got. Did we get 5 and 6?
Yeah, we got 2.
Oh yeah, that's
2
right.
drops
and
then 2 single episodes, and then last night was 5.
Episode 5 is unapologetically a filler episode. It does nothing to push the story forward. There's ways that they could have given it some connective.
It does very little
connective tissue in a way that would have felt like, oh, this is the progression of pushing Matt to putting the cowl back on. But they didn't do that, because then when you get to episode 6, they barely mention what happened in episode 5. Barely. Like, Matt's just walking around his apartment going la-di-da-di-da, la-di-da-di-da, and then his girlfriend
with all the lights off.
Yeah, and then his girlfriend is like, hey, are you okay? And he's like, well, yeah, what do you mean? She's like, you were just in a bank robbery.
It's like he doesn't even remember it. He's like, oh.
Yeah, it's so dumb. Also, and again, this is why it's a complete filler episode. It goes out of its way to introduce Kamala Khan's dad. So the only thing this episode is to do
very weird connection.
It literally goes, hey audience, guess what? Kamala Khan is still in the MCU. Wink.
Hasn't she always been?
Sorry, we made such a shitty movie with the Marvels, but yes, Kamala Khan is not gone out of the MCU. Just saying.
It's more like remember the terrible movie and the first flop of Marvel? Do you remember one of the characters that was in it? Which is a shame, because I like that.
The show wasn't bad.
I didn't love it. It's not really my bag, but it was fine. The Marvels was an absolute atrocity and lost Marvel millions of dollars. So it's weird that they would even want that connection.
Yeah.
The only reason I can see them doing it is because of the vigilante aspect. Like, she's in a borough of New Jersey, which is New York adjacent, and like she is operating as a vigilante over there, I guess. But they didn't even spin that angle. They don't even bring up, there's no Wilson Fisk in this episode to give us that other perspective of like, I hate all vigilantes or whatever. It felt very, very strange, especially because you have the end of episode 4, which is hardcore teasing Muse. And then you have the beginning of episode 6, which goes into the Muse stuff.
Yes.
It's like really a strange way of, it's like they didn't know what to do with this episode or where to put it. And it's like, just throw it between episodes 4 and 6. Nobody will care. We'll just tie it into the mob, and it won't matter.
To that point, I think this is one of those episodes that it really feels like they just didn't touch this episode. Like this was always planned.
Yeah. It didn't feel like there was a ton of reshoots there. It felt like, especially with the addition of Kamala Khan's dad, it had more of that lighthearted tone, which I think they wanted in the beginning before all the reshoots. Like they're kind of making jokes, and it didn't seem like they were taking this that serious at sometimes. It's like, I wonder if that was part of the tone. The leader of this gang of I don't know, the Kitchen Irish, whatever they are, tracksuit mafia guys, that's holding this bank hostage. Like, they were pretty flippant with their jokes and their remarks, and there just wasn't that sense of danger. I mean, they were dangerous, and they did things to the hostages that made them seem like they mean business, but there was not this atmosphere of intensity around this whole hostage situation. It just felt off. What's wild to me is, like, I've just finished the first season of Daredevil again, which is phenomenal. I have no notes. It's perfect. Imagine, okay, my favorite part of season 1 of Daredevil is when Kingpin detonates all the warehouses that belong to the Russians, and it starts this gang war, right? He finishes this gang war before it even starts. Daredevil's tossed in the middle of it. You have all these corrupt cops doing Fisk spitting around the city. This one horrible, horrific night. All these bombings are taking place. It's like, imagine you go from episode whatever of season 1 of Daredevil, and it's teasing all these bombings, and then the next episode is like some random bank heist episode, and then the next episode gets into the bombings. It's like, what are we doing? We have this killer muse on the loose, frightening everybody, killing New York citizens, and it's like, oh, we'll quickly just do a sidetrack to Matt has to get alone and like the hostages, and it just felt so out of place and weird.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't even know what to say about it, because it's like it doesn't tie into anything.
Yeah, it doesn't make any
it's literally
any
sense.
Decision. It literally doesn't make any sense why it's there.
I will say, was there anything that you liked about that episode before we move on to the more important things?
And that's the thing is, I like the idea of Matt going into a bank heist, like leaving the bank. I like, and for everything
that's
else,
a good premise.
Everything
We've not
else
seen that
about that. Everything else about that that episode was not. It's not a bad episode. It was just like, hi, we're just out of nowhere.
It's an island.
Because if I remember correctly,
it's totally remote.
Because episode 4 ends with Muse walking through the sewers, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're hyped.
So
you're ready to go to next week.
And so then you go straight into, oh, Matt just needs to go try to get a loan. And now he meets Kamala Khan's father. Wink, wink.
It was very, like, it was too on the nose.
Oh, and also, again, I'm gonna add this because it's pissing me off the more and more with this show. Guys, Daredevil has a secret identity. Stop letting him just tell everybody. Why? Like,
who knows now? Oh,
Kamala's
dad know?
Kamala's dad has to know, because he just went, oh yeah, I'm blind this whole time, and then, oh nope, here, I'm gonna kick this guy's ass in front of you.
But
Lord have mercy.
He's just a very good lawyer, Russ. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, also that line is funny. That line is now pissing me off.
But they've already done it.
It's because it's
Spider-Man.
I know, and that's why it's like, it's fine. Like they already said it too in this show.
Dude, let's imagine this episode played out differently. Let's imagine they do the bank heist plot, the hostage plot. They have Daredevil in there as a hostage. Let's say they use this whole situation to tie into anti-vigilante sentiments, right? Because Fisk is pushing this agenda. He wants all vigilantes off the streets, no more. What if you had a different what if you had White Tiger still around, and he's the one that tries to put a stop to this bank heist, but in the middle of it accidentally injures civilians? Or let's say he botches the whole superhero job and civilians get endangered. That would add so much to Fisk's campaign of anti-vigilantism, because look at this vigilante operating on his own who's led to the deaths of innocents, right? At least that way we could tie it into something. But instead, we don't have any of that. You know, if Daredevil's not around because Matt, 1, is in the hostage situation, 2, is no longer Daredevil, what if you had somebody like the Punisher, or it should be Spider-Man, but he's not around, or even like a Hawkeye or somebody comes in and botches the job, boom, anti-vigilante sentiments. I think that could have worked pretty well, but instead we just have no ties to anything, and it feels very strange.
But again, to that point, as we did talk about the very first 2 episodes, Marvel is making a very big distinction, very big distinction between heroes and vigilantes. And essentially, essentially what they're doing is that heroes don't have secret identities, vigilantes do.
Right.
That's essentially that's why Spider-Man is now being thrown around. Like, Fisk is now calling Spider-Man a vigilante, because nobody knows who he is.
I mean, my hypothetical episode would have to take place somewhere differently, because obviously everybody knows who Hector Ayala is now. It probably wouldn't fly.
This should have been.
I'm just trying to think of ways to actually tie this into the Daredevil show without. Yeah.
This should have been episode 3 or episode 4. One of those episodes, and it should have ended then with Muse, and then you get into episode 5. Like,
yeah, maybe
because the thing about this episode is, like, in concept, there's ways to tie it into everything that you want, that you need to do, so that you get the job done on where you need to get Matt to and from, essentially, in his role, essentially. I'm gonna fix this. Okay. And so with this episode, there's a clear, obvious, hey, this is we need to get Matt. We're trying to soften Matt up to the idea of putting back on the Daredevil suit. Which is why, yes, I agree, this episode should be the episode before he puts on the Daredevil suit. Absolutely should be. But the connective tissue that we had in episode 4,
it doesn't even really have to be
of Muse should have been in episode 5. It should have been in episode 5. Because then you lead from episode 5 into episode 6 and into Muse. The idea of him having to stop a bank robbery is a great idea. Okay, fine. You're not going to put him in the Daredevil suit, which obviously we all want to see him stop a bank robbery in the Daredevil suit. That's kind of the whole point. When, there's this big thing on X right now where everybody's like, oh, we want our heroes to stop petty crimes again. We don't want them to be stopping just world-ending events. We want Superman helping an old lady get a cat out of a tree. We want Spider-Man stopping the bicycle mugger like he did in, like, Homecoming. That kind of stuff.
I love street-level,
and that's great.
Hero stories. But that's what I want.
Marvel looks at that and goes, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make our hero not be in costume and have to come up with creative ways to help people while not in costume. You know what that is, guys? That's called a regular person being a hero.
That's fine.
Just happens to have powers. Stop it. Our heroes can be in their costumes doing this stuff. Ugh.
Yeah, you can have street level superhero vigilante activity and not have it be like a serious thing.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about a bank hostage situation, but you have the chief negotiator outside on the radio with the chief criminal in charge of the hostage operation, and they're like telling each other jokes back and forth. That is not at all the atmosphere that I want in, like, a bank hostage situation.
Also, you want to create tension.
We should have a lot more tension.
We should be trying to create tension behind this idea that Fisk is trying to make the cops be anti-vigilante, and Daredevil was operating for a long time, so he has cops that are on his side. Idea. All he has to do is like Daredevil could have showed up standing on top of that SWAT mobile, like coming off the rooftop, landing on the SWAT mobile, and being like, officer, you need to let me get in there. And then the officer's like, no. And he's like, I'm going to go in whether you want me.
Don't you know who's in charge? Mayor Fisk is anti-vigilante.
Yeah, like, exactly.
You can't be here. Get out. Instead, I liked your idea of bringing the Punisher cops, this anti-vigilante task force, bring them in and have them clear out the hostage situation. So the opposite of having a vigilante botch this hostage job, show of force, have Fisk roll out this new task force and show these criminals that he is meaning business. He's firmly on the side of the law. He's not going to give in to the criminals anymore, right? Because this whole hostage situation is the tracksuit mafia trying to get recompense for their $1.8 million that Fisk ended up giving them or something, right? That's why this is happening. So you show Fisk rolling out his new cop goon squad with their Punisher tattoos, kill all the criminals and say, hey, look, New York, I mean business. This is how I take care of situations like this. A vigilante probably would have just gone in, punched them, beat them all up, we'll throw them in prison, probably would have gotten civilians killed. But no, my guys, my anti-vigilante task force got the job done. Boom. Suddenly you have Fisk on top of the world. You have another reason for Matt to be pissed off at Fisk winning, right? Instead, we still get, Fisk in the next episode. He's trying to kiss up to rich folk, and I just didn't like that at all. There's a million different ways where you could have done this with just a little restructuring. Episodes 5 and 6 could have tied in nicely together, but instead we have just this lone episode in the middle of all this momentum with Muse just being dropped, and it kills everything. It's like I was so excited to hop onto these 2 episodes and be like, great, let's see what they do. And then it's like,
yeah, they had so much
total
momentum.
letdown. We have no Daredevil. We have no ties to anything else in this story.
Mm-hmm.
You know what this was? This was old school MCU. What did they call them? They called them like snapshots, or they called them, with little side adventures with like Agent Phil Coulson. He'd go find Thor's hammer or something.
Shorts.
What are those called? That's like what this is. It's like, oh, Matt Murdock's day at the bank, and it goes wrong, and then it's just this little self-contained thing. It's like, where's the newest Daredevil episode? I don't want the Daredevil snapshot episode. I want I didn't feel like I totally got that until the end of episode 6 when he actually gets back in the costume.
Ultimately, here's the thing. If they don't set up Muse in episode 4, this episode makes more sense.
They're called Marvel one-shots. Sorry.
Yeah, Marvel one-shots. Yeah. If they don't
this was the Daredevil one-shot.
If they don't set up Muse, if they don't set up Muse in episode 4, this episode is fine.
I guess, but it still
hold on. But also, if this episode was 12, if this season was 12 episodes, this episode, fine. Filler episode makes sense. Every TV show has filler episodes, but those are TV shows that are 12 to 20 episodes long. Like, think about Arrow. Think about CW. Think about when they had Arrow. Arrow had filler episodes. The difference is they also had 20 episodes to branch their story over. So they were allowed to
have that time
to trickle things. And so you were allowed to have that time. If this was a 20 episode show, then fine. Put some filler in it. Because for filler's sake, this was a great, other than the fact that they just had to remind us that Kamala Khan lives in this world, this was actually a great filler episode. But it's a great filler episode that should have been much earlier in the show. Not,
I think
where episode 4 was like, hey, he just pulled out the batons. That's also the biggest thing. Episode 4 not only shows Muse at the end of it, but it also shows him pulling out the batons. And him
like he's ready playing to get back into
and
it.
him playing with Daredevil. And then all of a sudden, nope, next day, woo, I'm gonna go to the bank. Like, no.
And Kingpin
so
I guess
dumb.
that was episode 6. All of our criticisms levied against episode 5 are the fact that it is standalone and it doesn't tie into anything.
Yep.
Now, if we judge this episode based solely on what it is and not what we want it to be or what it should have been, it's fine. It's fine. It's entertaining. I like the fact that Matt beats the shit out of that guy on the staircase without the music. That's awesome. Love that. I was texting you during the episode. I'm like, the lead criminal in charge of this little gang of Kitchen Irish. Like he was fine. He was great. I liked him. I liked the fact that he knew, like, he was very firmly in charge. He had some authority to him. He was like the scariest one of them. Had he like shot a civilian in the head, then I would have been like, okay, we mean business.
Yeah,
like,
they
here
needed
we go. But
they needed
there was not a lot of stakes there. I thought it was clever. Like they had somebody inside the job, like that woman. But it's like this diamond. What is this? What does this have to do with anything?
Yeah,
I don't have any more thoughts.
Again, we don't. What does the diamond mean? Like, why? Now, obviously, honestly, there's not going to be any payoff to that. Honestly, it was just that.
No, there's no reason
Matt
for
was
Diamond
giving
to have
it,
any significance in the story.
all that it was Matt was giving it back. That's all that was.
Yeah.
It's dumb. It, like, that episode feels so dumb. And then you get to 6, and it's not a bad episode. I have no problem with Fisk, having to rub shoulders with the elites to get shit done as mayor. That's great. That's all great.
I mean,
and
you got to do what you got to do, but I still think they position him all the time as just looking so weak and incapable.
I mean, I think that's on purpose, though. Like, that's, again, like, the whole like ethos of this show is 2 men who have very dark urges, essentially, quote unquote. Like, they have this dark personality to them. Matt has the devil inside him, and Kingpin also has.
I just realized
this devil inside of him.
Yeah,
and so the only way, and also, think back on the Netflix show. Think back on everything that Fisk went through as a child, like him killing his own dad, all of this. Fisk has this uncontrollable rage inside of him that he can't just turn the heat off on. So it's always there. So the only way he knows how to act, like, quote unquote, act normal is that he puts on this mask and ends up looking weak. And so that's where I go for it. It's like, okay, fine. Like, we know that's not going to last. We see it at the end of this episode that it doesn't last. And I think we're going to start seeing a much more menacing Fisk, because he's finally like, you know what, I'm done.
Sure.
I'm so done with this mask.
I can't wait. That's what I need at this point. And, halfway into the season, I feel confident that we can start judging the season based on what we've seen so far. Like, there's only 3 episodes left or something like that. I think there's 9 total, right?
Yeah, 3 episodes left.
I just need Kingpin to be strong again. I just don't like the way that they position him. You can show him like being inefficient as a mayor, but show him like, okay, this happened, let's pivot to this. Like, show him having a plan. Instead, he's like flailing in this room of elites, and
I think
I just don't know about it. It gives me the wrong vibe. This is not the Kingpin that covered his ass and had so many backup plans, and he could roll with the punches too. In season 1, something would happen, like the Russians would, go against him, and he'd be like, all right, well, I'm going to go to Madame Gao. We're going to combine forces. We're going to take the Russians out. He was always moving, and he always had Wesley backing him up. R.I.P. Wesley. Anyways, what I did think of just now while you were talking about that was, there's one vigilante that we saw in episode 6 who is operating. And then we saw him in the room of elites. And we have seen him in a previous show. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Bro, what if in that
Master.
Swordsman, right? In that hypothetical episode I have, what if the vigilante who's trying to do good but botches the job is the swordsman, right? He gets in there, he flails his sword around. He's efficient for a while, but then something happens. He doesn't know how to handle it. The job goes south, people die. And then in this episode, you have him, in the elite circle. Like, if they want to do swordsman, that would have been a good time to introduce him.
I mean,
just thinking about it.
Yeah, that absolutely.
We saw a little,
viral
clip of him. Like, that was something.
Ultimately, that makes more sense for the anti-vigilante task force.
And then they come in and take him down or something. Like, I don't know,
I get the idea of creating this task force because they want to stop a serial killer, but it's also really funny that they call it the anti-vigilante task force.
Muse is not a vigilante. He is a psycho killer.
Yeah, for sure. But it's like that's kind of where it's like, hey, this task force is gonna go after this serial killer, but its real thing is to keep other people in line. Is really what it is.
I can't wait until the Punisher slaughters all of them, anyways. So
ultimately to your Kingpin gripe.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna like Kingpin the rest of this season. I'm gonna be fairly honest with you. I don't think I don't think you're gonna get that Kingpin that you want, because they are setting like
maybe not.
They've
and
said,
I think that's a shame.
They've said that their plan is that this is going to be a multi-season show. Like this is they've already.
He's going to be the mayor for a while. You think?
Yeah, they've already started season 2. There's already reports that season 2 is going to be Daredevil leading a group of vigilantes against Kingpin and his anti-vigilante task force, which would make more sense now that they've also said that Jessica Drew is coming back in season 2, and
Jessica Jones.
Yeah, sorry.
I would love to see Jessica Drew.
Jessica Jones.
Too many Jessicas.
So I don't think you're gonna like Kingpin. I think you're gonna like Kingpin.
I get it.
I think you're gonna like Kingpin the last episode of this season.
I liked Kingpin the last 5 minutes of this episode.
And ultimately, you actually might start liking Kingpin more now.
I guess if I had seen Fisk in the public eye in these political settings failing, but then some scene to back it up with, okay, this is part of my plan. That's all that's missing here.
I mean, I think he's already kind of stated that this is part of his plan. Like, he was already, like, the dinner scene with Vanessa, he stated, he was like, I have far bigger plans. And
that's true,
it doesn't include me having to deal with these lowlifes. And then he finally realizes he needs to deal with the lowlifes.
I'm talking about something with more the intensity of the ending of episode 6. Like, have him go handle the mob people under the table. Like, have him go talk to them or kill them or something.
For
like,
sure.
Hey, I'm trying to do things above the board in the public eye and in the political sphere. He may be failing at that, but at least he can keep the underworld in line or something. You know what I mean?
So to that point,
he just doesn't look strong at all.
What I would say to that is
he's the main villain of the show. I don't know.
What I would say to that is, I don't think they're not playing him as the villain of this show. To be fair,
who's the villain of the show?
Not of this season. Muse is going to be like these vigilantes or contract killers and serial killers. These are the villains of the show. What they're doing is they're creating Kingpin, and they're focusing on Kingpin as showing you this character who was the main Daredevil villain, but is now trying to kind of quote unquote go straight. And I think the point of all of this is to show that Kingpin doesn't want to be two-sided. This is the point of the diner scene. It's Matt and Kingpin sitting down and essentially setting terms. They both are saying, hey, neither of us want to go backwards. We want to continue to go forwards because we think that our lives are better without my Daredevil half.
I mean, I know they're going to get something that drags them back to their old darker halves. I mean, I get that.
They're there.
Yeah,
but
they're there now. They're giving into their urges.
That's why Kingpin has felt so weak, is because he is trying to create this whole new facade that he is completely above board. And now you're starting to see the cracks where, okay, he can't deal with the lowlifes. He can't deal with the criminals unless he gets under the table and he does something a little under the table. And you're starting to see that.
I mean, that's what they're doing. I guess my gripe is just with the way that they're doing it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, it's also, this is a very different show than Netflix show. Like, that's to be fair.
I keep having to tell myself.
Like that, this is not the Netflix show season 4.
It's not.
This is Disney's.
They wanted it to be.
This is Disney's Daredevil. Circa, you already know these characters from the Netflix show.
Listen, all of this will be forgiven if I just see Bullseye kill somebody with a tooth next week.
With a tooth?
Yeah. I will put every gripe I've had
Interesting.
towards the show to bed if I just see Daredevil escape, or if I see Bullseye escape prison by killing some prison guards with his own teeth. Did you see that mid-season trailer?
I saw it. I missed the Daredevil, or I missed the Bullseye.
There was a shot where Bullseye's smiling and he's got this tooth and he's like ready to flick it out and kill somebody with it.
Very nice.
If I get that, 10 out of 10 show is all for all.
Bro, I think you will. I think you will get that. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that, again, we're retreading this ground of Matt not being in costume and not feeling comfortable being in costume. So we're redealing with all of this stuff that we dealt with in season 1 and season 2.
Season 3, he wasn't in the uniform.
Yeah, and even specifically season 3. So
and he was trying not to give into those darker urges to kill Kingpin.
Well, yeah, he really wasn't trying. He was giving into his darker urges. That's why he didn't put the suit back on. He just went back to black.
That's true. Back to the black suit.
Which season 2, I don't know if you saw any of the behind the scenes screenshots that came out about Daredevil season 2. There was one with Daredevil in costume.
I didn't see the black suit, but I heard that he was in it. I have not seen. I'll look it up right now. I'm actually curious. I was trying to avoid it, but now I'm curious.
You can tell that it's the black suit, but I will say it's also dark, and so you can't really see it really well, but it's definitely the black suit. Because it's not red. There's no shot that's a red
I see suit. I see it. It's got the looks like it got some white on it. Yeah. Interesting. Let's talk about the Muse stuff. What do you think of Muse? What do you think of the last 10 minutes of the episode?
I like Muse. I thought that fight scene was dope. Again, this episode,
I feel like they can do more with it.
I really like Matt going fuck it and just grabbing
the suit. Me too. I like it. He specifically said "fuck it" as well.
I love that scene. I love that scene. This is that whole retreading old ground. This police investigator dude, Cherry, is useless. Like, why are you coming to Matt and being like, "Hey, man, sit this one out"? Like, that's not your job, dude. That's not your job. It was Foggy's job. We don't need... This show does not need another person being like, "Hey, man, you really shouldn't just let the cops deal with this. Don't put the suit on. Screw you, Cherry. Go away." I don't need you walking into the office and telling Matt, "Hey, you were going to hear this, but I wanted you to hear it from me." Just so that way I could maybe just kind of cuck you into not being Daredevil.
Isn't that why we killed Foggy Nelson, so he wouldn't have anybody saying, "Don't get into the Daredevil costume"?
I don't need...
That's why Foggy died.
Guys, Matt does not need a Jiminy Cricket. He has a Jiminy Cricket. It's called his Catholic faith, which, shout out to the fact that they actually finally showed some of that this week.
Yeah, I like that. He was
and I liked it. I also liked how he responded to his girlfriend. Again, I don't remember her name because she's kind of just nah.
I always forget her name too. What is it?
But I like how he responded to her, where she was like, "You pray?" And he was like, "Yeah, I keep giving it up. I keep giving it up a couple of times, and I always seem to come back because I can't get rid of my faith." Essentially, is what he said. Love that. Again, Cherry, go somewhere else. Nobody cares. Nobody wants you telling...
Glenn. Oh my gosh, I can never remember her name.
Nobody wants
Cherry didn't get a lot
Matt,
to do this episode.
Nobody wants you to tell Matt that he shouldn't go into the Daredevil costume. Go screw off. If anybody is going to stop
it's time that he gets in the costume.
Yeah, if anybody's going to stop Muse, it's Matt. Lord have mercy. That pissed me off. I watched that scene. I'm like, this is dumb. Shut up. Go away. Go away.
I just realized that on the cast list, the dude that we saw, who we thought was Muse, who went up to the psychiatrist and said, I need help or whatever.
Yeah.
He's listed in the cast list as Bastion.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's Muse's name or whatever, but maybe
know.
he is somebody different. Because they could, like I said earlier, I wanted them to do more. They could very well just be using the Muse identity as a villain of the week. Like, hey, we need somebody to strike terror. He got away this episode, but I was disappointed that he didn't really speak at all, because in the comics, I've not read them, but everything that I've seen of Muse is like he has a very specific way of operating. He's got a very specific code. He feels very passionately about the art that he's creating, but we didn't really get that side of him through him. You know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't talk at all, which is kind of disappointing, because he speaks in such a way like he's talking about his art. You know, there's all that. So if he did escape this episode and he comes back in future episodes, I really wish that he would say something and we could get inside the mind of this guy and what he thinks about Daredevil, what he thinks about the city and the art pieces. So that was a little bit disappointing, but I loved just how they framed the whole scene and the subway tunnels and the darkness of it. And the fighting was really well done, I thought. You have Daredevil back in costume, going after the serial killer, soundly defeating him, taking punches, like really, really good stuff.
The ad of the grappling hook.
Yeah, the grappling hook
is amazing.
His baton.
That's my favorite part. Like, that is my favorite part about this show so far, is the ad of the grappling hook. It allows him to scale buildings and do the whole Daredevil running across buildings and everything.
His movement has
that scene where Muse is watching the train lights, and then all of a sudden he comes running out, and then you see the zip line or the grapple hook hit the back of the wall and it just pulls Daredevil into a punch. That was perfect.
We have
so dope.
We have the theme song playing in the background while he's beating on Muse.
Watching the dichotomy between Daredevil beating up on Muse and Kingpin beating up on
Adam.
Vanessa's,
they cut back and forth, which is very good. Adam,
Adam, so good, so cool, and just watching too, like,
because they're both letting their inner demons out. They're both giving into those urges,
and
they've been so trying to deny. They're giving into them, and this is finally when things start kicking off again.
Yeah, that scene where he is like strangling Muse and realizes he has to stop.
I didn't know how far they were going to take that. I'm like, what's happening?
Perfect.
Is he gonna off Muse right now? Like, how intense is he gonna jump back into Daredevil? But I was glad that they let him go.
Yeah, you see that, like, that go,
but it's
that
brutal.
That hero mentality of his kick in, where he's like, no, I gotta stop. I've got to save the girl.
I've got to stop this so I can focus on saving the innocent life.
And it's that dichotomy between, then you go to Kingpin's fight and it's just all hell breaks loose. Like, it's just.
And I'm surprised that Fisk actually didn't kill this guy. Like, he's still alive at the end. It's like, listen, man, you're going to stay in the cell, but from now on, I'm going to regularly come down here and I'm going to beat on you. Like, that's
I'm going to give you the
you're going to be my outlet, bro. Just don't even worry about it. Just take this axe. Maybe, try again next time.
Yeah, it was wild. It's crazy.
That was crazy. I loved, you mentioned it, the red light from the subway tunnels hitting Muse's eyes was like a nice little callback to the comics where Muse was first introduced, right? Because in the comics, he does have powers. Yeah. I believe he's actually an Inhuman, which is kind of crazy. He's got like sensory deprivation powers. He can null out senses for Daredevil, which makes him dangerous. In here, I think he's just a serial killer. He's obviously trained to combat hand to hand. He was, sticking with Daredevil, which I was surprised about. I love the fight choreography, but that little split second where you get the red subway light in his eyes, I felt like that was a good nod to the comics, right? He's got these red glowing eyes in the comics from time to time.
Yeah.
Nice little Easter egg there. Just like you were saying, the movement of Daredevil, even when he put on the costume and he starts going out to, you know, he's en route to Muse, but he's flipping around with his batons. There's a split-second scene where it's like he almost like charges them up somehow and then flips them and snags something, and then he's got this this grappling hook line. Like the way that they're showing that off is so cool. I love seeing all of that. And then he's using it as weapons too, like we've already talked about. He's choking out Muse with the grappling line. Gosh, what else? Just some really fantastic choreography. Some kicks, some punches, like all of that was so very, very cool. I just would hope that we get a little bit of banter back and forth, maybe with Muse and Daredevil or something. Like, I appreciate Daredevil just going in, you know, just guns blazing. But I'd love maybe in future episodes to explore a bit of the two characters in a scene together or something like that. But other than that, it was great. It was cool. I felt like the rest of aside from the Fisk dealing with the elites, there's nothing in this episode that stood out to me that I really need to cover, like talk about. I mean, we do get a couple of instances of I think Matt's girlfriend is talking to him about wanting to interview vigilantes in the future. And he's like, he's kind of playing coy with it. He's like, oh yeah, you know, you've represented some vigilantes in your time, right? He's like, oh yeah, you know, they're just regular people. And I'd love to see. And
then he starts laughing when she asks if she could
Daredevil. He's like, I don't know about Daredevil,
if
but
she could interview Punisher, which I thought was funny.
Punisher, yeah, which is especially timely for me because we're about to start season 2 of Daredevil. If not tonight, then tomorrow night. But we're going to see the early Punisher stuff in Daredevil season 2.
I love Josh Bernthal.
And how different that's going to look compared to like where we are now in the MCU.
Such a good actor.
Bernthal's terrific. I can't wait for those. But you know, that kind of leads me to, again, if I could restructure this whole season, this whole Daredevil Born Again revival that we're going through, you know, Muse could be a very interesting half-season long antagonist, kind of like how the Punisher was. You know, he was like this looming threat for like 3 or 4 episode stretch in that early season. We have gotten nods to Muse and his activities here and there, but it's like Punisher is a presence. And for like half the episode, he and Matt are just talking back and forth, and like it leads to such interesting dialogue, and that's the kind of thing that I feel like maybe is missing here. But
yeah, I feel like you have characters.
It's tough. I can't judge the series on what it isn't. I'm trying to judge it on what it is, but it's like I can't help but think, you know, we have seen successful Daredevil in the past with the Netflix show. It's like, I don't know.
I feel
it's hard
like,
not to make the comparisons.
Yeah,
I guess.
I mean,
I think Muse has so much potential as well.
Yeah, I guess. This is one thing that's always kind of funny to me is like having read Zdarsky's,
or they could build on him.
Having read Zdarsky's or read the Muse run, because he wasn't even in Zdarsky's run. I just never really cared much about Muse. I got that he was a serial killer. That was the most interesting thing about him to me. I didn't really
especially if we're not doing the powers aspect. Like
I didn't really care about his politics.
Into the art.
I didn't really care about his politics. I didn't really care about his way of thinking. I really didn't care. He's a serial killer. So ultimately, I care about his way of thinking about as much as just to, on the level of why do you kill? That's all I care about, you know? And so that's where I would say, like, I've not been expecting much out of Muse, because to the degree of the only thing that I want to hear from Muse at some point is like his ideology of why he kills. That's it. So that can happen in like 5 minutes. So I feel like
visually very interesting. I like the art connections that he does.
For sure. You're not wrong.
In terms of that like comic booky feel.
Fair.
He brings something to the show that others just haven't so far, aside from Bullseye. And that's the kind of stuff that I want to see. I like leaning into that so much as I like the masks that the criminals wore in the bank heist scene. Like it's I want to see those comic book elements translated to live action. You know what I mean? And seeing some of those masks, faces are interesting and all that, but like the comic books, the characters and their costumes, like seeing that brought to life on a screen is kind of like why I watch these things. You know what I mean? And like, and I love the Muse look and the gimmick that he has, and I want to see the villains challenge Daredevil's ideology in some way, shape, or form. But that's why I think Bullseye is so effective, is because,
well, I think, but and to that point,
killer.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Bullseye was never challenging Matt's ideology.
Not here, but in season 3, there was a lot going on.
He really wasn't, though, because it wasn't Bullseye who was challenging his ideology. It was Kingpin. He was just Bullseye was a tool. I mean, even in the comics, like the relationship between Bullseye and Daredevil is really interesting. For sure. No, absolutely. But I'm just saying is building off of what we've seen in the show, Kingpin is that person to screw with Matt's ideology. That's what this show is going to run on for as long as it can. That is always going to be him, and Punisher are always going to be the kind of moral debate and moral argument for Matt and for Punisher, for Daredevil.
I mean,
so to that point, like, yes, I agree with you. Like, there are elements of that with other characters. I just don't think, sadly, they're ever going. I don't think they're interested in that.
I mean, I'm not a writer. I don't know how you would do that. And again, I have not read the Muse arc. I just want to see some of these characters more important than just villains of the week, disposable, beat them up, throw them away.
Fair.
I want to see what's going on in there, right? Make them a character.
Fair.
Here, Muse is he's just a monster. He doesn't have anything going for him other than the art. And I want to explore that. I want to see why he does this, or why, I want to flesh him out a little bit. And I hope that the next couple episodes do somehow. Because again, we saw that kid approach the psychiatrist. What's going on there? I thought they were going to dig into that character, but I could be wrong. Maybe not.
Maybe
there's more important things to go.
I'm gonna make a prediction that the only thing they're using Muse for is the serial killer aspect, and the moral dilemma is going to come from Punisher, the anti-vigilante task force, and Fisk, because that's just especially what we see from Kingpin and the anti-vigilante task force and the creation. Like, it's very obvious that they're using Muse as a way to say, all right, we got to clean the streets. So, but you're right. I would, the cynical part of me would say, have you watched superhero TV? Like, just look at Era, like anything CW. They literally just turned so many characters into villains.
We should not be striving for CW.
No, 100%. Absolutely agree.
Daredevil season 1 stuff.
Absolutely agree. But this is Disney we're talking about. And
I'm going to call Disney out. I'm going to say, hey, give your characters more meat.
Have you seen their other shows? That's all I'm saying.
Most of them are trash.
Which
is why I'm upset in the first place. We can do better. Hire better writers. Write better.
Facts.
Do it better.
Absolutely. Facts. But
I don't know how to do that.
Sadly, we don't live. We don't live in that reality. We need a multiversal incursion to go find the.
We do. Universe. With that being said, I'm still very much enjoying the show. I think 100%. It's one of the stronger things that they've achieved on Disney Plus.
I'll watch Charlie Cox read a paper. I don't care. Like, I like him as an actor.
Dude, even that little Irish accent he put on when he was doing the criminals, that was great. Very funny. Very good.
But
you can have little moments of levity. It's just if you don't feel those stakes, it's just all.
And ultimately, there were no stakes. Like it didn't feel like you never felt like, oh, Kamala's dad is gonna die. It's like, no, he's
maybe
not.
The answer is
because
not having Kamala's dad in it at all.
Also, fair. I was rooting for one of those. I was rooting for one of those armed robbers to shoot someone in the head. That's what I was rooting for. I was waiting. That's
what Daredevil season 1 would have done.
I needed Daredevil or Matt to just sit there, not being able to have done anything, and just watch him the Catholic guilt just eat him alive. That's what I wanted.
Dude, think of how important that would be for the rest of his story, though, if he had to sit by and watch, or else reveal that he's Daredevil. Like, that's a dilemma to put your title hero in. I don't think Disney would ever have the balls for that sort of thing, but
exactly
that's an idea, and that lends well to anti-vigilantism. And anyway,
there's a cool debate. There's a cool debate that they are at the premise of this show. I just feel like they're dropping the ball, but they're also more aptly what they're doing is they're just staying surface level. They're not digging.
I don't know
if they could.
Plus has what it takes to actually explore big ideas and themes like we've seen in Daredevil seasons previously.
Damn.
We'll see.
For sure. All right, and with that, we're gonna.
If you give me Bullseye killing people with a tooth, all is forgiven. Don't even worry about it.
I feel like you will. I feel like it's gonna get crazy.
In the costume, crazy. I need him in the costume also.
I'm just looking forward to that scene that we saw in that trailer of
Punisher and the cops.
Punisher, the cops in Daredevil's apartment. Like I want to.
That does look like where that takes place.
So I'm looking forward to that scene.
What's going on
I'm looking forward to there. All right. Well, with that, we're gonna wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and let us know what you think in the comments. Hit us up. I'm always down to talk movie and TV stuff and comics.
We live for this kind of stuff. So talk to us about the Avengers casting. Theories about what's happening next. All that stuff. What's going on in Born Again? What are your thoughts?
Yep. And with that, we'll see you guys later. Peace. How do I always misplay this. Peace.